to welcome His Excellency Ambassador of the Kingdom of Morocco, Youssef Armani, to the Stimson. We're honored to host you here today and are very pleased that you could join us. Morocco stands at a particularly dynamic juncture in its economic story. The country's $155 billion economy is the fifth largest in Africa and is expected to grow at 3.7% annually through 2030. The government aims to attract $55 billion in private investment and create 500,000 jobs by 2026. Morocco is really a growing industrial hub, leading the African automotive industry with 250 companies. Industrial growth will also likely get a boost from visionary projects like the Nigeria-Morocco pipeline. At the same time, Morocco is distinguishing itself as the only African nation with investment-grade Eurobond status, a testament to sound fiscal management and investor confidence. Morocco's transformation is not only domestic, it's deeply international. Its world-class infrastructure, including the Tanger Med port, now Africa's largest, and a $19 billion rail overhaul, is really turning the country into a critical gateway between Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Chinese, Gulf, and European investors are increasingly looking to Morocco as a base for automotive manufacturing, renewable energy, and logistics, helping anchor regional growth and integration. As one of America's oldest allies and a vital partner, Morocco continues to deepen its engagement with the United States, the European Union, and Africa. Its economic diplomacy reflects a commitment to inclusive growth, regional development, and renewable energy cooperation. This alignment between domestic reform and international partnership makes Morocco a particularly compelling case study in sustainable and resilient development. Minister فتاح العلوي has been at the forefront of these efforts, guiding Morocco through fiscal reforms, investment modernization, and the green transition. Her leadership exemplifies how economic policy can be a driver of both national transformation and regional collaboration. We look forward to hearing her reflections on how Morocco navigates today's global headwinds, engages with the IMF and World Bank, and advances a forward-looking vision for growth. Today's discussion continues Stimson's commitment to North Africa's evolving economic policy landscape and to dialogue with the decision makers that are shaping the region's future. The North Africa program at the Stimson Center was established earlier this year to deepen the understanding of this vital region through impactful research and analysis of its evolving role in Africa, Asia, the Mediterranean, and the world. We're grateful to you, Minister, for joining us today and for all of you for being part of this timely conversation. Now it's my pleasure to turn over to Barbara Slavin, our distinguished fellow here at the Stimson Center, who will moderate today's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you everyone for coming, and thank all of those who are joining us online. I will echo the welcome to Ambassador Armani and his delegation, and to the Minister. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. I read a little bit about your bio, and it is indeed quite impressive. You've been Minister of Finance since 2021. You were previously Minister of Tourism, Handicrafts, Air Transport, and Social Economy. That's quite a collection. And prior to that, you were a very successful economist, financier, and entrepreneur. So you do seem to be well positioned to help Morocco move to the next stage. You also chair the Mohammed VI Investment Fund, which was established in 2020. Perhaps you can tell us something about that along the way. But let me begin with a more general question. Obviously, this is a time of enormous flux in the international economy, trade, tariffs, many headwinds that are buffeting a lot of countries. So let me ask you to start talking about what you see as Morocco's main opportunities now in economic terms, and also what are some of the main challenges that you face?
First, thank you for having me, and on behalf of, I would say, the Moroccan delegation and Morocco in general. And I understand it's the first time in this new program that you are, I would say, inviting North African countries. I think the last 4 years at least were very interesting in terms of headwinds, of multiple crises, and of course, Morocco has to manage the spillover of the crisis. But I think one lesson and maybe one recipe that we firmly believe was part of this dynamism and allowed for the recovery of our economy is that we have a long-term vision when it comes to partnerships, to integration in the global value chain. So we definitely are not changing our DNA or telling that trading with the world is not a necessity, is an axiom today, that there is, I would say, when you have, I would say, good communication, respect, you can have opportunities. So I think this, we are really blessed, thanks to the leadership of this ministry, to have this long-term vision, which means that we've been having 50 trade agreements with the world, which is quite an exception, I would say, in the African continent. So we need to be, I would say, very careful in analyzing what's happening, but none of our decision is short-term. When we say that we are open, we want industry, we want to trade, we need force, it's really for the long term. It doesn't mean that from time to time one market gets narrow, another one might open, and we have competitors coming from all over the world, but we need to keep the pace and the reform and the openness of Morocco.
I neglected to mention that if those in the room would like to ask a question, you have a QR code that you have to scan, and that will submit the question automatically, and I will see it here. And I see that already we're getting some questions online, which I'll start to work in, and one of them is about U.S.-China trade tensions and whether that's having an impact on Morocco. I know China is a very important investor in Morocco. Can you stay out of the fray?
No, we are in the world, and I think what's happening in the world, because we are in the global value chain, is very important. I think that definitely the trade with the U.S. is much bigger, much important than any trade that we have in China. For the last 5 years, imports from the U.S. have reached $25 billion more or less. So this partnership is much stronger. Of course, there is this balance between the China and the U.S. that is shaping, I would say, and creating a new conversation worldwide. So we are, so small, so the influence of Morocco is probably not changing these balances of this, but we are very, honest in our relationship with the U.S., saying that we are an anchor of stability. We need our share of development, of modernization of industry. We are loyal to our partners, but we need to create jobs, create value, and we can be a solution, maybe geographical solution, to lead between two worlds the moment they will finish, hopefully, to discuss how to work together. This is what I can say.
If you can also talk, I believe that Morocco is subjected to 10% U.S. tariffs, which is relatively low in the scheme of things. Has that been a big problem? Previously, there was a free trade agreement, I believe, under which there were no tariffs. So, have you been able to adjust to that, and how has that affected your trade with the U.S.?
As you mentioned, we are in the lucky group of the 10%. So this is how we see it. And actually, we have much more imports from the U.S. than exports.
What do you import from the U.S.?
A lot of things, I would say, a lot of products, planes, food, energy, so really all type. And this is why I say we're talking about $25 billion for the last 5 years. So definitely the trade cannot be in favor of Morocco. So we had an honest discussion. Of course, we tried to negotiate because we need to do so, but globally it doesn't have, I would say, massive impact on our economy.
Let's talk about some of the areas that you're growing in the economy in Morocco. And I was mentioning to you earlier before we started that I had the good luck to go to Morocco during the 1980s.
when Morocco was very active diplomatically in terms of Arab-Israeli peace, intra-Arab relations, and I was based in Cairo in those days. And I mean, even then one could see that tourism was extremely important. It's a beautiful country, as anyone who's been there knows, and has a huge variety, whether you're going skiing or going swimming or you're going for the food or the handicrafts. So what is the status of the tourism industry, and how big a sector is it for Morocco now, and how do you see it growing?
I'm so glad that I'd say the tourism sector has I'd say gone in a very dynamic way. On the opposite on what the big strategy firms was predicting 2020 and 21. I was Minister of Tourism, as you mentioned. So I've experienced tourism without tourists, very interesting one. But after this, we had really a massive increase, more than double digits in tourism. First, because I think that we made this clear decision is that to have tourists, we need to connect to the world. So we've been, I would say, part in the Open Sky Agreement with the European Union for years, but we didn't push it as much as we needed to. So today we welcome any airline who wants to connect to cities wherever in the world, and it works very well. This is a very important thing, and it helps to grow the number. Second thing is that we pushed the digital marketing, I would say, of Morocco to explain the diversity of our country. So the US tourists like to mix between golf and culture, so they go to the imperial cities. For some reason, the Spanish tourists would like to go to the desert and see the desert, yes, and the French tourists, which are the major ones, are going to Marrakech. And this is very interesting because it allows to create opportunities, jobs, economic revenue, different ones in very, very different cities. The other thing is that it opens for private investment in hospitality, in all other sectors around the tourism. And then we got into the 3 hours flight for so many, I would say, big cities, which helps definitely for the short-term breaks. This is a good product, actually. People won't travel anymore for 2 or 3 weeks, but for 3 or 4 days, we are a good destination. So it's 7% GDP, 8% more or less of jobs, direct jobs, and hopefully we can go further in this number, which is a good solution for so many regions that don't have industries or other, I would say, economic sectors.
Yeah. Let me ask a little bit more about youth employment, because obviously this has been an issue in recent weeks. As we know, there have been so-called Gen Z protests in Morocco. They've been in a number of countries, actually. And what Morocco is doing to try to provide more jobs for young people in particular.
It's a massive challenge, this job and employment for youth. So for Morocco, we are working first on the fundamentals. And fundamentals is education, all kinds of education, from pre-scholarship to reform school, and then reform the university, because we need skilled jobs. We are also working, this is on the social side of the country. Then we are building infrastructure and creating the conditions for growth and economy. It is happening. But despite this, for the time being, we still have 13% unemployment rate, and especially for youth. So we cannot be just waiting for our, I would say, economic theories work and jobs to come, because they have to come now, and a lot of them cannot wait for other 5 to 10 years. This is why we have, I would say, comprehensive plan that we started early 25, not 2 weeks ago. First, to accelerate the pace of this reform to have impact. Secondly, to change the KPIs of the other public policies, because you have departments in charge of jobs, but actually it's all the departments that have impact on
jobs. So now we have new dashboard, and any public policy to be funded, to be budgeted, needs to have these KPIs. And then we have real other issues that are intermediation between the offer of the job and the demand. The strange thing is that if you see some entrepreneurs, some companies, they will tell you we are suffering a shortage of I would say, human capital. And on the other hand, you have a lot of young people who have a degree in geography or biology and cannot find a job. So we need to find solutions, and this is an area where probably our recipe didn't work very well right now. So we have areas, for instance, aviation sector. We choose in day one to say, to do this, we go through private-public partnerships, because it's aviation, we don't know how to train people who go there. Because it was technological, we thought that PPP was the right thing to do, but I'm sure that we can experience the same thing in so many areas. So I'm long in this answer. What I want to say is that we need to keep the pace of the reform for the long term. What we are asked today is short-term results and quick wins immediately, because if I tell a young man that school is going to be better in 10 years from now, I say yes, but I want a job today or tomorrow. So this is the challenge. There is two other challenges, is that we lost a lot of jobs because we had a drought for 7 years. So the dynamic in other sectors than agriculture cannot be providing enough jobs for all the one we lost. And we lost like 1 million jobs for the last 10 years in agriculture. 1 million jobs is a massive number. And second challenge, this is the future, is that you have a lot of new technological, I would say, solutions, a new change that probably will change the dynamic of what is creating job or what is not creating job. And for this, I think we should be innovative and leapfrog. We cannot be always one technology behind what the West is doing, because otherwise they're already seeing that they're losing jobs in some areas. So we cannot afford to be investing, I would say, in some areas that is killing jobs instead of creating jobs. So this is, in few words, what the challenge of unemployment looks like.
There's a question here from an Africa analyst based here in Washington, who notes that Morocco's reform agenda has earned strong international confidence for maintaining fiscal stability and attracting investment. But it says many citizens feel disconnected from these results. So how does your ministry ensure that national reforms and investment flows lead to visible improvements in people's daily lives? And how do you measure whether that progress is helping to rebuild social trust? And I think you've dealt with that to some extent, but is there more that you're doing to try to show people that these investments will produce positive results for them?
I think that what you are, I would say, talking about on the last week is probably a kind of wake-up call, because it's an occasion to mirror what progress we have been doing, and I can say without apologizing that we are doing a reform and progress, but also the time to see what we haven't finished, and maybe where we got it wrong in time of prioritization, or maybe just miscommunication. This is very interesting. So as a Ministry of Economy and Finance, and as a government in general, what we need to do is every dirham we spend, it needs to be as close as possible to the youngest people's opportunity. And it doesn't mean that we should be focusing only on short-term results, but also to long-term results, but this intermediate solution. So to put things clearly, We cannot sacrifice the long-term reforms because long-term is very important, and we are managing a legacy now. So, for instance, for health, for education, we are managing everything. We went to election, we won the election, so it means that we are taking full responsibility for the past, for the present, and to prepare for the future. And I think that we need to create clear, transparent communication channels. First, to explain what we are doing, to listen to what needs to be fixed, and then to build this trust. Because at the end of the day, these young people just want. They're not, I would say, angry about Morocco. They're impatient about Morocco. And you know that the space of information is not the same one that public policy. So, like many, I would say, members or colleagues of the government, I'm literally born in another century than them. So we catch up. We try with our old people from another century to prepare a better future for people who are born in another century. So we need to catch up, we need to listen. And I think this is a very, very, very interesting time to do this, because we are fully committed to do the job, to keep the house in order, but we cannot not listen. It's really a time to reveal something about young people who want to participate. I think this is what we are learning actually.
Yeah, well, the young people make themselves heard. That is certainly true in every country now. Some questions about Chinese investment that we're getting also. Which foreign country is the biggest investor, foreign investor in Morocco?
It is this year it's Spain actually, but it's either Spain or France, or we have also some countries from the Middle East that are growing in the ranking.
And where does China figure in the?
Really, no, they're not in the top 10. Maybe last in the top 10, but definitely not. We have much stronger relationships with Europe, US, and Middle East regarding the foreign investments.
I wanted to ask also whether you've gotten any economic benefits from the Abraham Accords.
We started when the Abraham Accords were implemented to have a strong relationship, I would say, economic ones in tourism, but also in technology, innovation, etc. I think that the pace has reduced for the last years, but I think that the story of the economic relationship is strong, is old, and we have really a lot to learn from desalination, for instance, is a real solution in Israel that has bring a lot of solutions for the farmers. In Morocco, we have a really scarcity in water, and we need to bring water for people to live from their agricultural business. There is some expertise, and we need to build on this one as an example.
Okay. There's a question here about Morocco's expectations regarding the West African gas pipeline. So maybe begin by telling us what that project entails.
Okay. So first, Morocco is not producing any gas. We have some new, I would say, hopefully production that is a promising one, but nothing that is changing the landscape. Very important. So this pipeline is not for any Moroccan production. Very important project for the African continent and for the Western continent. Why? Because we still have in Africa 600 million households doesn't have electricity. In the same time, you have a lot of gas, of oil produced, and so the moment you have this pipeline crossing almost 14 countries, it means that the one who produces first, they have their own needs on electricity. They bring cheaper and more affordable energy to the countries in the neighborhood, and then we connect to a market, like the European market to Morocco, because Morocco is effectively today connected to the electric market with Spain. We buy some electricity from Spain, but we were also able, and we also have a pipeline for gas. So very interesting one to say that the solution is regional integration, because we have the same, I would say, objective, access to affordable, hopefully more and more clean energy for the future, but we don't have the same situation. If we put together our know-how, our expertise, and our connectivity, then we are bringing solutions to each country, to the group of the country, and also to the exchanges with Europe, and hopefully we have these things in the future.
What about renewable energy? I mean, it's a very sunny country, so
Yeah.
I think solar is a major.
So again, renewable energy, our strategy under the leadership of His Majesty the King goes back to, it hasn't changed almost from 2009, when we had an agency dedicated to implement a strategy to push for the renewable energy. So today, capacity for electricity is 40%, we rely to 40% on renewable energy. Objective is to reach 52% by 2030. As you mentioned, we're lucky to have a sunny country, and we are even more lucky because we have sun and wind in the same place, which is very interesting. Because when it is just solar, you have intermittent problem in the battery. So when you have at the same place solar and wind, then it gives you also even more means to be more competitive. Objective is access to electricity and sovereignty, these words can, and then also have a cleaner energy for the future. And so we are really accelerating. Interesting thing also about renewable in the beginning. This agency was, I would say, funded by the government because we need to have a proof of concept. And today we don't need to invest any single public dollar because you have a lot of, I would say, massive international companies that are doing these investments in a critical mode, which I would say relieves the budget of our government.
Here's a question. In what way do you see the participation of the Moroccan diaspora as a source of consistent foreign capital and investment?
We are very proud of the Moroccan diaspora. The story of diaspora is very different when it comes to Europe, US, Middle East, etc. And the interesting thing is that for many of these diaspora, we are talking about the third, probably very soon the fourth generation, and despite this, they are very, very close to Morocco. As investors or entrepreneurs for Morocco, I think that we are really by far below the potential. We have a lot of remittances coming to Morocco.
Where are the workers sending them from?
Everywhere, they are so we have strong remittances coming, but hopefully we want them to be much more involved in entrepreneurs. So a lot of them today, because people work remotely, they don't have, I would say, a straightforward career or job, so we are also opening opportunities for them to participate. So in the academic world, for instance, someone who is in a big university and teaching the students from all over the world, we cannot just ask him to come and live in a small university in Morocco, because actually we need him to keep doing research and innovation. So we are creating corridors for them to come 2 months a year, 3 months a year, to really interact with students, with companies. This is one way to help them. We also want them to be more exposed to the investment through the capital market, because it's a solution for them. So we are working in so many areas with the diaspora for them, hopefully for some of them to come back, because we need them to help us to speed the pace of the development. But for those who have another choice, who are still learning, interacting with other areas, share some of their time, some of their thoughts, of their knowledge with Morocco.
I have a question here from William Lawrence of the National Council on U.S. Relations, an old friend. He notes that the 2025 budget includes a record level of public investment in infrastructure, with the goal of boosting private sector participation. So his question is, what specific mechanisms will ensure that this public investment stimulates rather than crowds out private sector growth?
Thank you for the question, and that's because I'm a politician and I have to thank for the question. No, because it gives me the opportunity to explain this. I think in the introductory speech, you recall that we want the private sector to represent in the future 2/3 of the investment effort. And this is an objective set, and with a strong commitment actually with the government to. But if you say I need the private sector to represent 2/3 of the investment, you cannot just say I'm stopping the public investment.
Can I stop you for a second? What is the percentage right now of government versus
Today
private
it's
sector?
2/3 government, 1/3 private, and we want to flip it. So therefore, the moment we are having this effort of public investment, first we have chosen in many sectors to go through PPP mode. All the renewable energy is done in PPP mode. All desalination of water is done in PPP mode. So in any sector, when private companies have the appetite, and they have the appetite, the expertise, they are coming to this. And it's good for the government too, because we have a transparency on the pricing, and we have competitiveness. This is important. Secondly, we are also having a procurement public policy that encourage SMEs and encourage regional, I would say, initiatives, especially for companies that give some insurance that they will employ youth and women locally. This is very, very important. And finally, there is some infrastructure that cannot bring immediate profit. So you know that the private money needs returns within 5 to 10 years. And you know that some projects need 30 years. So the 30 years project, we need to fund them, and we need, since I'm in Washington, allow me to tell you to the GFI that they need also to allow for, I would say, competitive and affordable funding for the 20, 30 years projects.
Maybe you can say something about World Bank and IMF support for Morocco and how that's going.
I think that we have a very interesting and very successful partnership, a different one, of course, with the World Bank and the IMF. World Bank have been really supportive for the reforms in Morocco. And interesting is that in the last, I would say, past years, we have chosen to both invest in building or strengthening the social state and diversify the economy. And saying that we cannot afford to choose either one or two of the topics, and we work really closely with the World Bank to find solutions to work on the two sides in the same time, plus reforming the administration and being more efficient. So it's very interesting, and I can tell you that even with the World Bank, we have transparent conversations. Okay, 4.5 growth for this year, very good macroeconomics, I would say, results, but we are missing jobs. So and the moment we question, as we said earlier, the reforms in Morocco may help us also question not the I would say the fact that we need to reform, to implement, and to really push hard for them. We said, what can we do differently? This is very interesting. For the IMF, I think really what we've been doing the last 4 or 5 years was very interesting. We had access to this flexible line, and I want to emphasize on this one, and we were probably one of the first countries in Sweden to accept it. And the conversation with the IMF was very interesting. It was after the war of Ukraine. So the prices were like this, everyone was with the 13% inflation. So we went to them and said, we want the flexible rate. And you guys, we are busy with the crisis. I said, yes, it's our solution for the crisis. So we said, we don't ask for any additional money, either to pay our rent or gas, but we want some insurance outside so that we don't stop the reform. And this conversation went very well with the IMF, saying, okay, understood, you keep the pace of the reform and you have this insurance side, and this is very interesting because it is built on the trend, on transparency, open books to say we will keep the house in order. The world is turbulent, so we are not sure that we can do it on our own, but please don't give us any additional money, just watch and give us the insurance. And really this was the interesting one, and we were able to renew the line this year, decrease the amount, because we thought that the world would be, I would say, more peaceful than 4 years ago. And this is how we do it with the IMF.
Okay. Question I always ask people who work in the economy, especially in the Middle East, is about women's employment and women's participation. It's an issue perhaps throughout the region, and particularly when you have high youth unemployment. I would guess that women are very disadvantaged in that. So, do you have a breakdown in terms of women's participation? What are you doing to try to get them to participate in the economy without making the country even more frustrated, I guess?
I think that Morocco is not scoring well on women's participation, especially when we compare to the other results of the economy. And the bad news is that this participation rate has decreased since COVID and not the opposite. This is not good. So this is the context, and we are. So for this, I will bring two answers. Of course, you have the same bottlenecks that you will find culture, etc., and it's a very complex one. So we are working also with World Bank, with civil society to see that we need to find it. But I think that another way really to maybe make progress on that one is stopping, I would say, taking this subject through the prisma of gender equality, or I would say moral values. And this is why in my position as the Minister of Economy and Finance, I said, guys, we are missing 1 or 2 points of increase in GDP. This is what it is about, actually, because we are average 4% growth per year, really to avoid the middle income country trap. We probably need to go to 6. Without women, we cannot do the 6%. So I think that we really need a dashboard explaining that every woman that goes back to work, especially that Morocco is scoring very well at the university. 50% of the people who graduate from the university are women. And then you arrive in the business world, you're 35, and you look to your friends and they're not there anymore. And you forget what happened, and you said, where are they? Yes, they had their children, etc. But I think it's not, and also another thing, we say that it's culture, it's society wrong. Because in the poorest household, they cannot afford to say it's a value, or a lot of these very poor women, they wake up at 5, they don't have transport, it is dark in the streets, and they go, and no matter what. So I think we need to bring the discussion on the pure economic side, and I'm sure that we'll be getting much more results. And then demography, I think we win, because if you train 50% of the doctors and you need doctors, then you will have women doctors working at the hospital, and same thing for the engineers, etc. Even for the engineers, we are having 50% of the graduate youth who are women. So I'm quite optimistic, but again, it's like for jobs, it won't happen, say, at the normal pace. You need to push more for this.
I have a question here about plans for the development of Western Sahara. So, do you have plans for the development of Western Sahara?
We have plans for Sahara. I don't know Western
Sorry,
Sahara. Morocco and Sahara.
That's the way it was phrased.
Okay, now I understand. I'm just taking it.
It's a question from someone in Barcelona. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, question.
Okay, it's very important. I think, let me give maybe some information about this region. Maybe 2 or 3 very interesting KPIs. If you look at the latest elections that happened in September 21, the highest participation rate was in these 3 regions of Morocco, because definitely they know what politics means, what public policy means. So I think this participation rate at the election is a very good, I would say, indicator of. Secondly, the highest rates also of education at the baccalaureate, the best rate. So really this is about human capital, to say how do they feel about politics and the rights they have. Then the economic growth needs to happen. So I can tell you that the balance about what the Moroccan government has prioritized as investment is really massive. We build the roads, we build the airports, we build the schools, the hospitals. But today what needs to happen is really an economic growth and dynamic. So let me give one example, is what we call the Atlantic Initiative in Morocco. So we've been very successful in Saint-Germain in the Mediterranean, but we have all this Atlantic coast. So today we are finishing a big port in Dakhla, and it will be a solution not for the fishermen because they are living from fish, but we are also pushing for green hydrogen and for renewables, and it will give opportunities to create industry. That's for the population living there. But in the same time, we are opening this infrastructure to link also the region with the sub-Saharan countries, because Sahel countries don't have access to the sea. It will be a chance for them to go there, and also to use the Moroccan infrastructure to sell their tomatoes and potatoes to Europe. So a really interesting case in the Sahara region. We build, I would say, we build for years infrastructure, human capital. It's time that this development, economic development happens. It is happening, and the investments are coming. And what I can tell you is that the international community now is coming, not only to please the Moroccan government to go and visit this airport or this plant, but because the opportunities, and you know, when it comes to money, your friends, but money first. So today investors that are willing to see opportunities are coming to this region and really committing to massive investment, especially in renewables, energy, green hydrogen, and all the ecosystems.
One of the questions that comes up is about the World Cup, participation in 2030, and if you could talk a little bit about how this is going to work. It's going to be in several countries, I believe, and sounds a little bit unwieldy, but Morocco has made a major investment, as far as I understand, in terms of infrastructure.
Okay. So the World Cup is, Morocco will be organizing it with 2 friend and neighbor countries, which are Spain and Portugal. Regarding Morocco, I think what the pure investment dedicated to the World Cup is stadium. And of course, stadium, I cannot tell you that we can say that adapt the stadium to become factory. Stadium is for football, But for those, I think that the most important thing is that we have one new stadium, and all the others are really rehabilitating new stadium. So this is the envelope that is dedicated to the World Cup and to the football match. Of course, we had other infrastructure investments that were happening. And let me give one example around mobility. So Morocco has already experienced the high-speed train between Tangier and Casablanca. And I can tell you, 20 years ago, I was in the skeptical group, but this high-speed train has been a massive instrument of the success of countrymen, of finding solutions for Kenitra, and really creating a dynamic with Casablanca. So we had a speech of His Majesty the King really before the World Cup announcement, asking the government to say, Agadir is in the middle of Morocco, so the high-speed train for territory equality, you need to have the high-speed train going to Marrakesh and to Agadir. So this project was there. It was already phased to Casablanca. And so when we talk about the World Cup, say, look, we have a new milestone. So we need maybe to speed the project first. So yes, we are speeding the project to be on time on 2030. It's good news. The second good news is regarding mobility. Because before World Cup, you have a full set of investment for trains, a full set of investment for roads and for airports. And because we have this big project, common project, we have all these estimates sitting together and said, okay, it's not the work it was. We want to solve mobility. So it's not having an overlap between, and through the investment on the train, we are solving mobility without, in 2-3 regions, like Casablanca, because they couldn't afford for their own needs for mobility to build, I would say, a railway network. But now they are putting their money as a region to be part of this story. So this is very important to understand.